Hi, I'm Chris Upham with the DC Metro Real Estate Journal, and I'm here to talk to you today about the most important real estate and finance issue of the decade that you've probably heard nothing about. But first, I want to draw your attention to a couple of the buttons on the right-hand side of our blog. The first is the "What is your home worth?" button. If you go ahead and click this, it's going to set you up with market updates. So you're going to get a snapshot as to what homes are actually selling for in your neighborhood to stay up with the market trends. The second is the "Search All Homes" on the MLS button. This is going to keep you posted with the most accurate and up-to-date listings, even better than Zillow and Trulia. Now, for today's topic, this is the most important real estate and finance issue of the decade that you've probably heard nothing about. And that is what they're referring to as TRID. TRID stands for the Truth in Lending RESPA Integrated Disclosure. And this is a significant change that is coming into place this fall of 2015 due to some acts of Congress. You know, Congress has always got our backs as consumers. They're always wanting us to the consumer and the general public to not be taken advantage of and to watch out for consumers' rights. And so that is the whole thought behind this TRID. And so essentially, they've enacted a number of laws. They're going to have significant impacts and changes in the home buying process. And so I wanted to make sure that you know what are the most important aspects of this that are important for you or anybody you know that's buying your home. First, there's two forms that you hear most often in the home buying and selling process. And the first is a good faith estimate, and the second is the HUD-1 settlement statement. As you know, the good faith estimate from your lender tells you all the numbers having to do with your loan. The HUD-1 settlement statement is essentially the reconciling of the money back and forth between the buyer and the seller, and ultimately telling the buyer how much they owe and the seller presumably how much money they're getting at settlement. Well, both of these forms essentially are being revised and changed in TRID, and while the functions of them are still going to be there, they're going to have a new name. We're going to have a loan estimate form, which is replacing the good faith estimate. We're going to have a settlement or a closing disclosure, which is going to be replacing the HUD-1 settlement statement. So essentially the functionality is the same, but they're going to have a different name. So if you end up hearing people say that there's not a good faith estimate anymore, there's not a HUD-1 anymore, they're right. The names have changed, but the function is still there. Second, with TRID, Congress wanted to, in order to protect the consumer, anytime there was a change in the numbers with a loan, they wanted to make sure that the buyer had enough time to review those changes and be comfortable with them before settlement. And that's an excellent thing. We always want to make sure that the buyers are aware of what's going on. But how that can impact you is this. Say you're just a couple days out from settlement, and this happens where perhaps there's a home inspection item that did not end up getting replaced or repaired, and the buyer and the seller negotiate a credit from the seller to the buyer at settlement. And say this were to take place and it ends up changing some of the numbers having to do with the buyer's loan. Take, for example, they decide to use that credit to buy down the interest rate on the loan, and it ends up changing the numbers having to do with the loan. The lender is going to be required to issue a new loan estimate. And in doing so, that could be one of the items that triggers the new timeline that Congress has enacted, a waiting period before you can get to settlement. Now, if this has happened in the last couple of days before settlement, in the past, this is, buyers and sellers would work out these agreements and they'd still get to settlement on time. Now, Congress, with this change in TRID, has said that you're going to have to wait. Now, that may create problems because, as you know, sometimes we'll have a chain of several settlements. A seller has someone buying their home and they're selling and they're buying, they're selling, they're buying, this whole chain of events that is all happening at the same time. And perhaps there's moving trucks all lined up and people are, their utilities, there's all of these, the logistics are all set up for a certain timeline. But if one of those settlements now has a congressionally mandated waiting period, it can throw off all of those items and create significant issues. Another important item under the new TRID changes is that in some jurisdictions, the language in the contract has been adjusted as well. Take, for example, in the financing contingency. It used to say that when a buyer has removed their financing contingency, their loan is approved, then they have to go to settlement, and if they don't close on their loan, then they could be in default. But the contract language has been changed to protect the buyer that could become an issue for the seller. And specifically, it says that if a buyer who has removed their home inspection, has removed their financing contingency, is unable to get to settlement on time due to the lender dealing with regulatory issues, then that buyer is not in default. Well, this is a questionable issue for a seller. A seller, they're just wanting to make sure that their home gets sold and they're able to move on. Now, if you're just a week out from settlement, the buyer's already removed their home inspection contingency, they've removed their appraisal contingency, they've removed their financing contingency, but now that buyer's lender runs into issues with regards to this TRID deadlines and timelines and milestones and regulatory issues, and now that buyer's not able to close on time, you have nothing to hold their feet against the fire to and to get them to settlement on time. So that is why there's an excellent real estate listing agent. There's certain things that they can and should be doing to protect their seller's interest in that process. Now, with these changes in the regulations, most lenders are now saying that it's going to take them at least 45 to 60 days to close a loan. And one of the things that we've found has been one of the best tools in representing buyers to help them get a great deal on the home is sometimes a quick closing in as little as 3 weeks. Now, there still are some lenders that will be capable of executing a quick closing for you. And that's why selecting the right lender can mean now more than ever all the difference in the world in terms of you getting the best deal on the home and getting to settlement without any costly surprises or delays. Finally, the most important thing that you as a home buyer can be doing to ensure that you are not going to run into problems with the new TRID regulations is to get your loan fully approved prior to going and looking for homes. Sometimes in the past they just talked about getting a pre-approval where you'd call up and talk to a lender or do an online application, perhaps even get your credit checked. But today, what I'm going to recommend to you is that you submit all of your loan documents, that you submit you sign the loan application, you submit your last 2 pay stubs, your last 2 bank statements, maybe even your last 2 tax returns, and that the underwriter has fully approved the credit portion of your loan so that you know there's not going to be any questions or problems that's going to come up at the last minute that could cause problems for you and your settlement. So the TRID changes and the regulations from Congress that are taking place this fall have significant implications and impacts for both home buyers and sellers. And while it's an issue that many of us have not heard about, or it just seems like maybe it's not my issue, or it's not something I need to worry about, it's going to cause problems for certain people as they're beginning to encounter these changes. That's why now more than ever, who you are selecting as the real estate agent to represent you and the lender to help you with a loan will mean that that'll make all the difference in the world for you getting the best deal on the home, getting to settlement without costly surprises and delays, and for a home seller, making sure that you get to settlement without having your deal fall apart at the last minute. I'm Chris Upham with the DC Metro Real Estate Journal, and we're looking forward to talking with you next time.